This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on the South Today, the first international students are arriving back at the University of Otago after COVID-19. Muslims in the Queenstown Lakes districts now have a new place to worship. And classic motor vehicles have been celebrated recently at a southern car show. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. One of the first international students allowed back since New Zealand closed its borders has arrived in Dunedin. Not only is Hannah Mello happy to return to her research, she's also finally reunited with her beloved dog.
Finally reunited with her dog Quercus after leaving Aotearoa in March last year, PhD student Hannah Mello is ready to get back into her research. Mello is one of the first international postgrad students to return after the borders were shut.
I think my supervisor would say that's not surprising because I can be quite tenacious when I have a task.
Her pet was looked after by friends in the meantime.
One of the most stressful aspects of being away is being separated from him because I don't think I'm alone in the fact that my dog is family.
After enjoying the introverted lifestyle of the 2-week quarantine in Christchurch, Mello says something as simple as going to a cafe is wonderful.
It was my first cup of coffee in a cafe since March, and I just sat in the cafe amongst all these unmasked people and sort of smiled into my coffee.
Mello is going around New Zealand studying the microscopic marine animal Bryozoa. They form important habitats for other marine life.
Everything from Tarakihi in Tasman and Golden Bay to cod just off the peninsula. And we're really lucky here in Otago to have this really incredible habitat so close by.
Bryozoa are under threat from bottom trawling fishing vessels, and Mello hopes to help the recovery process by advising future marine reserves. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Cobb & Co plans to reopen its restaurant at the Dunedin Railway Station in mid-February, according to the franchise national director. Dunedin's Cobb & Co closed during the nationwide COVID-19 lockdown, going into liquidation in March 2020. However, the company's managing director Ben Gower says he signed a lease agreement with the Dunedin City Council on Christmas Eve. Gower says Cobb & Co wants to prove the restaurant can operate successfully and then sell it to a local operator, but admits it could be a bit of a challenge convincing potential local buyers. The company is talking with former staff about returning and looking to recruit new workers as well, and is hopeful of reopening mid-February. Queenstown's Muslim community is branching out with a new education centre located in a retail area in one of the resort's hotels. Those attending the opening expressed support for the region's growing Islamic community after it was targeted recently.
Correcting the narrative, Sarah Son-Pear speaks at the opening of the Maz Islamic Education Centre in Queenstown about the common misconceptions of the Islamic faith, including the religion's treatment of women.
As a woman, I am very passionate about the topic of women and oppression in Islam, and I think especially with how things are now, it's very easy to say, a lot of bad things, a lot of things are not accurate. Our faith has always been very clear that men and women are treated as equals. Some people often actually say that women have a higher status and we're like diamonds in the religion.
Local dignitaries, including Mayor Jim Bolt and Southland MP Joseph Mooney, plus the general public, were invited to the official opening of the education centre, which is housed on the second floor of the local Sofitel Hotel.
I'm here just to support what they're doing. I think it's great that they're bringing the community in to show them who they are, what they're about.
An olive branch has also been extended to the teenager charged with putting up several hundred anti-Muslim posters around the resort, with an invitation to visit the education centre. And the local MP says his door is always open.
I'm happy for him to come in and have a cup of tea or a coffee and have a bit of a yarn with him, just to try and dispel some of what they think misconceptions about what he may or may not believe about their religion.
The education centre has been established to provide a central place in the resort for Muslims to worship and as an information point for those keen to learn more about Islam. In Queenstown, the South Today.
The Run the Runway event at Dunedin Airport is to be held in the evening from now on. Until this year, the event was held before dawn, and organisers say it's one of the silver linings of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused airline schedules to change dramatically. The Mosgiel Rotary Club is holding the first Twilight Run the Runway at Dunedin Airport next month. For security reasons, all tickets to the event must be pre-purchased, with all proceeds from the event going to the Otago Youth Adventure Trust. The last flight of the day is scheduled for 7:25 p.m. Runners and walkers will then line up for an 8 p.m. takeoff. A sea of glistening chrome and polished metal greeted visitors to the Cromwell Classic Car and Hot Rod Show. Among the vehicles on display was a Ford GT40, designed to compete against Ferrari in the 1960s.
A sea of glistening chrome and polished metal greeted visitors at the Cromwell Classic Car and Hot Rod Show. One of the more distinctive cars on display was built by Alan Dunn of Timaru.
It's a Ford GT40, and the 40 is because the top of the car is 40 inches off the ground.
The cars were made to beat Ferrari at the Le Mans endurance race.
Ford was looking at buying the Ferrari team, and they fell out over bits and pieces of it. So Ford came out and said to his team, build me a car that'll beat the Ferraris at Le Mans, and they did that, and New Zealanders Denny Hulme and Bruce McLaren were part of the team that did the winning at Le Mans in Ford GT40s.
The race to topple the Ferrari racing team from the top spot was the subject of the film Ford vs Ferrari.
So there's some really good stories, and that's why the movie Ford vs Ferrari was such a popular movie here last year.
Mr. Dunn began collecting parts for his Ford GT many years ago.
I bought a kit, bits and pieces of the bodywork out of Australia years ago, and then when you get to 50 people buy a motorbike. I don't like motorbikes, so when I got to 50 I put all the bits and pieces together and built myself this car.
In Cromwell for the South Today.
Still to come on the South Today, Fosika's disturbed archaeological sites in the Waitaki district, and we have the first edition of Global Insight this year with Professor Robert Patman, so see you after the break.
Risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
TV, our favourite babysitter, but it can be tough keeping up with what our tamariki are watching. Luckily, the Broadcasting Standards Authority has made some smart changes to the classification labels. Ooh! plus changes to the time of day certain rated shows will air, and awesome new parental lock features, meaning your babysitter's job is safe. Find out more at safeviewing.co.nz.
Welcome back. Fossicas are illegally disturbing an archaeological site in the Waitaki district of great significance to Māori. Heritage New Zealand says casual fossicking is destroying the important site at the Awamoa Creek south of Oamaru. The site was part of travelling routes for early Māori up and down the South Island. Under New Zealand law, archaeological sites are protected and it is a criminal offence to modify or destroy the site without permission. Anyone with information on the recent damage is asked to contact Heritage New Zealand. And now we continue our week-long series looking at events that took place over the Christmas holidays. Each New Year's Eve, holidaymakers in Aotearoa get to see rockets being launched into the sky. The rockets are flown by a Dunedin man who imports them for the United States.
Dunedin man Alistair Broad has been blasting off model rockets at the Aotearoa domain for several years. The US manufactured rockets are recyclable, although they only last about 5 takeoffs before they burn out their O-rings or get blown away in the wind.
They're fired by American manufactured motors, and the rockets are assembled out of parts I can import from America as well.
The powder-fueled rockets are ignited by an electrical spark and float gently back down to Earth, with Broad paying a small financial reward to anyone who finds one.
They're launched by way of an electrical charge which ignites the motor, sends the rocket flying, and at the apex of the flight the rocket divides into 2 and each part comes down on its own parachute to be recovered by a mob of children who are in it for financial reward.
Broad's been experimenting with rockets for 30 years. In Aotearoa, the South Today.
In today's Global Insight, Professor Robert Patman says Joe Biden will not pursue unity at all costs as he tries to heal wounds deeper than any the United States have experienced since the Civil War. The University of Otago International Affairs specialist says it will be a hard slog to undo the mistrust and polarisation that emerged during Donald Trump's presidency.
Donald Trump has exited, stage left, and Joe Biden has been inaugurated as the 46th President of the United States. The US, though, is now perhaps the most divided it has been since its civil war 160 years ago. Do Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, do they have what it takes to heal this divide? Or are their own views and agendas, are they going to just entrench divisions in that country?
Well, we're soon going to find out the answer to your question, and it's difficult to predict in advance. But one thing we're absolutely clear on is that they are indeed, Biden-Harris, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, are presiding over the most difficult, in fact, the worst political and constitutional crisis since the Civil War of the 1860s, as you indicated in your introductory remarks. Biden has a number of advantages. He's enormously experienced, 47 years in Washington. Kamala Harris, I think, was a shrewd choice because it shows the administration's commitment to diversity, which was something that was a big criticism of the previous administration. I think the administration has to hit the ground running. We know that later today, Joe Biden will be signing 17 executive orders, many of which will be rescinding some of the things that the previous administration did. But it's got a very ambitious program, which I think is largely centered on COVID-19. I think the Biden administration's ability to convince Americans that they're getting on top of what is the number one problem, which is the runaway and rampaging impact of COVID-19. More than 400,000 Americans dead. And Biden, in his early public pronouncements as president, has taken time to honour the memory of those people who died. So I think if he can convince Americans in the first 3 months that, unlike the previous administration, he's focused on an issue which affects all Americans, irrespective of their gender, ethnicity, then I think that may be a big plus in him beginning to get more unity in the country.
Trump's presidency was about alternative facts, and that carried on right to the end, with him still saying that the election had been stolen from him, and that despite senior Republicans like the former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, saying Biden had won and had won fairly. Will all of this suddenly get better under Biden? And how significant a threat to democracy is this phenomenon of alternative facts?
Well, I don't think the situation in the United States is going to rapidly, overnight improve. I think it's going to be a hard slog for the Biden-Harris team. I think there are very real problems in the near future. According to a very reputable poll in the United States, 45% of Republican voters thought the storming of the Capitol was a justified act because of a stolen election. With Mr. Trump out of the picture and facing a lot of lawsuits in the near future, I think that some of the Republicans are going to have to revisit their position on the case that the election was stolen. Because they're not only going to come under fire from the media in general, but they're going to come under fire from their own supporters, particularly since Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, has joined the pragmatic camp. He was a close ally of Trump, but he parted company on the idea the election was stolen. So it's going to be very interesting. So I think, to sum up, I think that Biden's emphasis on unity is important, but it doesn't mean unity at all costs. It doesn't mean you allow people who do not actually accept the democratic outcome to have a say in policy making, and I think they'll be very firm on that.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Te pono me te araha.
And you can watch the full interview with Professor Patman online at odt.co.nz. After the break on The South Today, there are more developments at Tiwai, and we have tomorrow's weather for you, so see you after the break.
Welcome to Alex Campbell Menswear. Our 3 stores have no shortage of stock. Check these out. We've got the Dunedin print t-shirts. Check out our zillions of short sleeve shirts. These are crackers. They iron themselves in the wash. Iron cheater they're called. And there's some really cool polo shirts. Look at all the bright colours. And of course there's no shortage of shorts. This is always one of our brightest colours. Our long sleeve fashion shirts. Jeans, casual trousers, dress trousers, you name it, we have you covered.
Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
So if you're shopping for your family or yourself, come and see Alex Campbell Menswear stores. We're full of stock.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
Thanks for staying with us. The delayed closure of the Tiwai Point aluminium smelter will not disrupt plans to build a large cloud computing data centre in Southland. That's according to the people behind the plans to spend more than $500 million building a storage centre at Makarira, north of Invercargill. The development could require up to 100 megawatts of power from Meridian Energy. But project leader Remy Galasso says this will still be available as the smelter also continues to consume power. The first stage of the data grid is expected to be in service by 2023, with submarine cables laid from Invercargill to Australia and Auckland. Southland's climate is expected to help cut back on cooling costs. And now recapping tonight's top stories on the South Today. The first international students are arriving back at the University of Otago after COVID-19. Muslims in the Queenstown Lakes districts now have a new place to worship. And classic motor vehicles have been celebrated recently at a Southern car show. And now look at what's happening in tomorrow's ODT. Welcome, Barry. What have you got for us in tomorrow's ODT?
Well, just another day, another busy day. Former Southern Road policing boss has slammed police over the South's horror road toll over this holiday period. So he has some pretty firm beliefs as to what the situation is there. So worth having a look at. And of course, Joe Biden has been sworn in as President of the United States. We have our man Robert Patman from the University of Otago having a look at that, and we'll have some more from the States as well in the paper tomorrow.
And let's hope they keep it civil, is all I can say. Like there's
it's good so far.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
The normal politics will kick in at some point. So. It's never an easy ride, is it? NCEA results out today and some tomorrow, some yesterday apparently. But while some in the education sector were concerned about pupils being disadvantaged with the COVID-19 lockdown, well, we've uncovered 3 Otago pupils who said that was a huge bonus to them, and lockdown was actually a benefit. So I guess the results would prove that, wouldn't they? And of course they'd be saying that worked well for them, but it did. And we have the story of the unlucky in love male sea lion. Intriguing story. He mistook tyre tracks on the sand on the beach for those of a female sea lion, and he ended up on a busy Dunedin street. Was nothing grim about that. He then retreated, so it had a happy-ish ending, but he mistook obviously it was a quad bike or something like that, and he mistook those tracks for a female sea lion, and he was disappointed when he got to the end of the road.
Well, hopefully he finds love, or maybe he needs to go to Specsavers.
Well, that's the point, yes. Okay, that's about us.
Lovely.
Thank you.
And you can catch all of that tomorrow in tomorrow's ODT. And now it's time for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Beginning with the southern view, which the camera operator simply called summer. Looking at the situation, a strong and very cold southwesterly airflow will ease slowly tomorrow, with further showers about the coast but clearing weather inland. Weather should remain fine over the weekend and become milder. Looking at the northwest, rain is expected with 17 degrees in Greymouth and 16 degrees in Westport. And on the eastern side, showers for Nelson with 19 degrees and partial cloud for Blenheim with a high of 21. And down the east coast, rain and 17 degrees in Kaikoura, cloud and 19 degrees in Christchurch, and scattered showers and 18 degrees in Ashburton. the southern towns, fresh westerlies with some cloud and 17 degrees for the Catlins, Balclutha, Lumsden and Gore. Moving to central Otago, moderate westerlies with fine weather for Wanaka and Queenstown and Alexandra. Alexandra has a high of 19 degrees, Wanaka 18, Queenstown 17, and Tiana, you'll need your umbrellas with fresh westerlies coming and showers expected. To the northern towns along the coast, Timaru has afternoon northeasterlies, fine weather and a high of 19. Oamaru has variable winds, some cloud and 18 degrees. Inland, moderate westerlies and fine weather with 19 degrees for both Twizel and Amarama. And in Dunedin, showers clearing tonight and becoming fine with cold winds easing with a low of 8. It's going to be mostly fine tomorrow with sunny periods and some cloud and moderate west to southwesterly winds. Temperatures will still remain rather cool though, a high of 17 and a low of 10. And it's mostly cloudy on Saturday with moderate northerlies, but westerlies freshening later in the day, which may bring a few showers during the evening, looking at a high of 18 and a low of 11. And in Invercargill, showers clearing tonight and winds decreasing with a very cold low for summer of 5. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a risk of scattered showers, bringing fresh gusty cool westerlies, a high of 15 and a low of 8. And cloud increases and rain develops later on Saturday with freshening northwesterlies. Then it changes to showers and fresh cool southwesterlies from late afternoon, a high of 15 and a low of 11. And that's all from the South Today team for this Thursday. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz or follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.